Hello, lovelies. Tonight we are reading Chapter 17 of the Double Trouble Society. Chapter 17, No Room on the Broom. The floating girl looked like Jemima, but at the same time completely different. It was her face, her body, her ginger hair, and her baby blue silk pajamas, but there was an evil lurking behind it all, and that evil was most certainly coming from Emerald. Her voice spilled out of Jemima like potion and poison. Let her go, Emerald. Amethyst moved in front of the children with her arms outstretched, ready to protect them from any oncoming spells should she need to. Don't pretend you care about this one. You stole her voice, Emerald snarled through Jemima's lips. How is she doing this? Ivy asked. It's the necklace. A silly little power-throwing trick, the witch's equivalent of a ventriloquist throwing her voice. She's temporarily putting her powers into Jemima through that necklace. Why doesn't she just eat Jemima's heart like she could, while she could? Ivy asked. I don't think she actually came down here herself to plant that necklace, Amethyst said, eyeing up a nearby crow that was eyeing her right back. If you want to fight, come and face us like a real witch, you coward. Maggie picked up a pebble and threw it towards Jemima. Her voice was scornful. Don't! You'll hurt Jemima! Ivy stopped Maggie from throwing another pebble. You're on to something there, Maggie, Eddie piped up. She's the Crowood witch. We've been fearing her for centuries, and yet here she is, taking the form of a child. Oh yeah? Why isn't the almighty, all-powerful Emerald swooping in and taking one of us? Couldn't she simply destroy Crowood Peak in an instant with a click of her fingers if she wanted to? Maggie sneered in Jemima's direction, but the girl's face remained blank. It was as if, when Emerald wasn't speaking through her, she went into a state of stillness like a doll waiting to be played with. Amethyst considered Maggie's challenge for a brief moment, and then a smile spread across her face, which she knew what she could add. My sister is scared. Amethyst raised her voice so that Emerald could hear her declaration. Scared? Don't be foolish, Amethyst, Jemima snickered in Emerald's voice. But you are, aren't you? Otherwise, you'd be here yourself, firing off your spells left, right, and center, terrorizing the village. You'd be stealing not only the 13th child, but also the 14th and 15th, and so on and so forth, until you've had your fill. Amethyst walked slowly, but purposefully, step by step, towards Jemima, while most of the watching children stayed back behind the gate of Hokum House. Something's stopping you, isn't it? What has got my sister so scared? You've got it so very wrong, sister, Emerald said, but her voice was quieter, less harsh, less convincing. Have I? Then why is it that every step I take towards you, you seem to let Jemima float a little further back away? Amethyst said, taunting. It's not like you to run from a fight. Are you suggesting that I'm scared of you, Amethyst? Emerald's voice was full of disdain, and she let out a cackle. But through Jemima's lips, it didn't sound as terrifying as it had before. Or maybe she really was scared? You couldn't be further from the truth. Then let the little girl go and face us like a proper witch. One of Jemima's eyebrows twisted upward for a brief moment before her eyes flashed a vivid shade of green and then went back to being their usual dull hazel. She began to fall through the air. At exactly the same moment, Amethyst, Ivy, and Maggie raised their hands and shot a stream of purple magic towards Jemima to break her fall. But as soon as their bolts of magic touched, the three of them were blasted backwards, falling to the ground themselves. Ouch, Maggie said, rubbing the back of her head. Is Jemima okay? Ivy sat up to see Jemima lying on her back on the ground. But she appeared physically unharmed, though she wondered what damage the Crowood witch might have done to Jemima's mind. Amethyst scrambled to her feet, ran to Jemima's side, and quickly tore the necklace away from her throat, sending shards of green crystal skittering across the path. Maggie and Ivy quickly joined her to help hoist the unconscious Jemima off the ground by their arms and legs and carry her through the gates leading to Hokum House. Other children joined and helped bring Jemima indoors. What happened then? Asked Jamie. He was holding a glass of water and a cold flannel, ready to give Jemima first aid. "Why did you all fall over?" "I'm not entirely sure," Amethyst said, "but I think individually our magic isn't particularly strong, and since I hit Maggie and Ivy with that blast of magic, my powers have been considerably weaker. My magic has somehow been split between the three of us, and when we tried to save Jemima together, the three shards reunited, and it was much stronger than any of us were expecting." She checked Jemima's pulse as Jennifer and Jamie took her hands and gave each other a solemn look. "She's going to be okay," Amethyst added. "She's just fainted. She must be completely exhausted. My sister isn't the easiest person to share a room with, let alone a brain, so she'll probably be out for a little while, but we'll make her comfortable, and I should probably return this." She pulled the jar containing Jemima's voice from her coat pocket. "I'm sorry now that I ever took it, but hopefully with a minor adjustment," she held the golden jar up to the light, "it'll make all the difference. She'll still be herself, her mind. She has the power to turn these kind and golden words all multiplied back now into snarky red ones, but hopefully she'll make the right decision." With that, Amethyst unscrewed the lid of the jar, which came off with a pop, and she tipped the contents into Jemima's open mouth. The children were quiet so they could hear the words whispering as they slipped past Jemima's lips. Jemima remained asleep, but her cheeks returned to their usual rosy color and her face relaxed and softened. "Now," Amethyst said, "let me see these brooms, and then we'll go through the rest of the plan." The selection of brooms laid across the living room rug of Hokum House wasn't particularly varied. There was only one house hardware shop in Crowood Peak, so most of the children's parents had purchased the same broom. And it was not ideal for flying, not a typical witch's broomstick after all. Amethyst surveyed the sorry bunch with a frown as she rubbed her chin. "This one's broken." Amethyst held up a poor excuse for a broom that had no bristles and almost half the handle broken off. "Yeah, I might have used it as a lightsaber when my brother challenged me to a fight," said a boy called Archie with a lopsided smile. "This is no good for sweeping a garden, let alone trying to fly 50 meters in the air," Amethyst tutted as she held up a broom that had a handle barely 15 centimeters long. "And this one is more of a twig than a broom," she added, not even bothering to pick up one that really did look like it had fallen from a tree that morning rather than come from anyone's shed. "I'm sorry, children, but I simply don't think there's one that will—" "Wait a sec." Amethyst moved across the room to Jennifer. She was holding a broom by her side that looked more like a witch's broom than anything else in the room. "Jennifer, that broom is amazing." "Thanks," Jennifer said with a half-shy shrug. "I made it for Halloween last year, but I didn't think it would be right, seeing as it's not an actual broom like the others." But Amethyst was delighted. "This is perfect, Jennifer. This is exactly the sort of broom I would want for myself." Jennifer presented Amethyst with the broom as if she were handing over Excalibur, the legendary sword of King Arthur. The handle was made of a dark wood that Jennifer had sanded and polished until she could see herself in the surface. "My mom's a carpenter, and she had an old staircase banister that she wasn't going to need, so she let me have it," she explained. "And I collected the twigs at the end from some of the trees in Crowood Peak. It's really nothing, just a silly little craft project." Jennifer shook her head and stepped backward, shying away from the children's gaze of admiration at her spectacular work. "Jennifer, this is really quite something. You've made something truly incredible, and because it's made from Crowood trees, it will be better at amplifying my magic," Amethyst said happily. "How?" asked Ivy. "Remember that I told you that curses have a funny way of attaching themselves to things? It's not only curses. All magic finds a way of sticking to things it shouldn't, but trees especially. Trees are old and have often been around for so long that they've seen more magic than anything else. This bundle of twigs probably contains more magic than the three of us put together. Old magic, too. This broom is the real deal." Amethyst turned to Jennifer, who was beaming, and asked, "Would you mind awfully if I borrowed it?" "You mean a real witch is actually going to fly on my broomstick?" Jennifer looked at Amethyst with big, round, glistening eyes. Hopefully 2 witches if I manage to pull off this plan without a hitch. Wow, Jennifer said breathlessly. This is too cool. Is that a yes? A big one, Jennifer giggled, and everyone joined in. So what exactly is the plan then, Amethyst? Asked Eddie, who always had his thinking cap firmly on his head. Because if you're right and your magic has in fact been split between you, Maggie, and Ivy, surely you won't be able to defeat Emerald on your own. You'll need all your magic for that, which means we'll have to come with you, Maggie interrupted, stepping forward with her chest puffed out. We can help, can't we, Ivy? Ivy joined her friend. That makes me awfully nervous, but I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to stop Emerald. And if that means using this magic you've given me, then I'm willing to do so. Amethyst shook her head. Just one problem, Jennifer said, taking the broom from Amethyst and holding it up lengthwise. There's no room on the broom. This will only hold Amethyst and Emerald at a push. It's not designed to hold 4 people at once. You know what you need to do then, Amethyst. Ivy's voice was low and calm. Amethyst was quiet for a moment, her forehead crinkled in confusion, and then the crinkles ironed out with sudden horror. Absolutely no way. That is far too dangerous and is not happening. She snatched the broom away and walked towards the front door. I'd rather take my chances with Emerald alone than put anyone in more danger than necessary. What are you both talking about? Maggie asked. Eddie's idea is to lure Emerald here, so she has no choice but to face the 3 of us. Face all of Amethyst's magic, not just a third of it, Ivy explained. Clearly, that's why she was so scared to come here alone before, Eddie continued. She knows the prophecy. She knows you have the power to defeat her again, just like you did before. That's true, Amethyst, said Ivy. The first chance she got, she took off and flew to the mountain. If she genuinely thought she could crush you with one spell, she would have done it in an instant. Instead, she ran. That's true, but the last time I defeated her, Amethyst began to stutter, clutching the handle of the broom to her chest like it was a beloved children's toy. It was what? Ivy pushed. It was an accident, Amethyst mumbled. There was a stunned silence. All the children looked at Amethyst as though she just admitted she was, in fact, the evil sixter, and it was she who was responsible for eating the hearts of the 12 children. What do you mean it was an accident? Eddie asked, through almost gritted teeth. Please don't be angry with me. Amethyst's eyes began to brim with tears. Just tell us what happened last time around, Amethyst. There must have been something you did that defeated her. Something you can do again, Ivy said hopefully. Not really, Amethyst sobbed, dashing the last scrap of hope Ivy had. All I did was hug her. You hugged her? Maggie asked, and Amethyst nodded, unable to meet any of the children's eyes. Emerald kept throwing spells at me, which I blocked as best I could until she had me on my knees and I couldn't fight anymore. Then she got very close enough to finish me off, and I reached out and hugged my sister, knowing it would probably be the last thing I ever did. I still loved her despite knowing everything she had done and how evil she'd become. She was still my twin sister, and I knew this wasn't really her. It was the curse. All of a sudden, it was like she was melting in my arms. She withered away and shrank until there was just an old black dress on the floor of this house with something wriggling about inside it. When I untangled the mess of a fabric, inside was my sister, but she was a cat, Maggie finished. I don't know how I did that spell. I remember hugging her and wishing that she was harmless. I wished so hard that she would no longer be hell-bent on eating the hearts of children. I wished that she was unable to inflict any more pain. All of a sudden, she was no longer able to cause any more suffering because she was a little kitty. That bit was accidental magic, and I have no idea how to replicate that spell. All I know is that a little bit of sisterly love went a very long way. Amethyst finished her story with a long, hard sniff. Then, before the night was over, I used the magic of the moon to tie her to the house. Which is why you think if you can get her here to remember the bond you had as when you were kids and how you used to go flying together, it might do the same thing as it did before, Eddie asked, and Amethyst nodded slowly. There was a collective grumble and groan. Hey now, Maggie raised her voice. I trust Amethyst. Besides, what other option do we have? The Crowood Witch is ready to snatch one of us and turn all the grown-ups in the village into the heart-eating monsters. If we don't have Amethyst, we're definitely doomed to that fate. And remember, there are going to be other things we can do too. We can help to weaken Emerald, stand together to save our village. Maggie is right, Ivy nodded. Amethyst's plan isn't just a good plan, it's also our only plan. And I'm ready to give it our best shot. Anyone else have any better ideas? This time the children were silent. Even Eddie wasn't able to think of a better plan. Exactly. So let's listen to Amethyst now. Find out what else she wants us to do and when we're going to carry out her plan as best we can. And if it doesn't work, at least we'll die trying, Maggie said. A hush filled the living room of Hokum House. The room was devoid of sound, but filled with something else, a lot of fear, but also a little bit of hope. This can work. We just need to pull together and believe in each other. But most of all, we need to believe in Amethyst. Ivy's smile was a little nervous, but it seemed to do the trick. Amethyst smiled back, looking a lot braver. Thank you, Ivy. Amethyst wiped away her tears. Now, it's time to defeat my sister. And that is the end of chapter 17. We're going to see what happened, and if her plan works and they're able to defeat Emerald. Come back tomorrow and we'll read on to chapter 18. Sweet dreams, my littles.